Welcome to Stories of Our Childhood Forgotten Gifts, where we explore the fascinating stories of individuals who experienced intuition, extrasensory, and other abilities during their childhood and growing years. I'm your host, Anne Curtis, and my guest today is Zane Cashmore. Zane is the medicine man in the shamanic tradition of the Quero people of Peru. His healing practice incorporates energy medicine and sacred geometry and is in Perth, Western Australia. Welcome, Zane, and thank you for joining us. You have a fascinating story to share from your childhood. But in this interview, you're also going to share with us the journey your life has taken to get you to where you are today, embracing some of the abilities and knowing that you had as a child. Would you like to share what happened to you, Zane, as a 4-year-old and the experiences that followed?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Anne. I grew up in Victoria on a small farm, which was located in Diggers Rest. We had harness racehorses when we were growing up. So my father actually bred and raced them back in the late 80s and early 90s. So we'll start with your question about what happened when I was about 4 years old. I was playing outside and my father was feeding one horse in one of the paddocks. I was only small, being a 4-year-old, only up to about knee height. And I decided for some reason to run behind a horse. And I don't know why, but as I looked up, I heard my father screaming and yelling at me to get away. And the next minute, I heard a bang, a loud bang, and I went flying through the air. And I got kicked right on top of my head, which I still have a gigantic scar and a huge indentation actually into my skull. And I can still remember it, actually. That's the weird part. You forget as you become an adult, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember what paddock it was and smashed my face into the dry mud because Victoria is always super dry. I just remember blanking out after that. And so my father took me to the hospital, bleeding out on his knee. I was born in 1986, so it was probably 1990, around about that time. So back in those days, not a lot with the injury care compared to what it is now. So kept me in there for a little while and then stitched me back up and sent me home. And it wasn't till probably a couple of weeks after the accident, that's when I started to get dreams. These super, super vivid dreams where I would be like an altered state of consciousness, and I would have this man standing above me or standing in my presence, communicating. I can't remember what he would talk to me about. I just remember him communicating with me. And then I started to wake up in the middle of the night, and this went on for quite a few weeks. My mum's a psychic, actually. So I was born into a very spiritual household, which I'm very grateful to have. And I would wake up in the middle of the night smelling smoke. And it wasn't like a normal type of smoke at all. It was sort of a mixture of tobacco smoke, a bit of a mixture of fire smoke, and then some other type of smoke. I remember it not being like a distinct smell. It was just a weird smell. And I'd wake up and standing in the corner of my room, I would see a man, a figure. And it was a native Indian. And he would just stare at me, wouldn't communicate with me. I'm getting shivers with talking about it, actually. He would just stare at me and just look at me. When I say it, he was standing in the room, it's not like seeing another person, like how we are looking at each other right now with all the same details and everything like that. It was a glow, a hue. Certain things would stand out, but you couldn't say that he had blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes or, the shape of his nose or anything. It was sort of formless, but it still had form. And I just remember seeing these lights. It looked like feathers is the best way that I can describe it. But you couldn't see that they were feathers, but it was in the shape of feathers. And all these feathers just above his head all around him, like a blue and white hue. And so he would stand in the corner and just stare at me. And then as quick as I would see him, and as soon as I was aware that there was something in the room, he'd disappear. So this went on for a little while. Wake up in the night and yell out to mum and dad or go into their room and say, the house is on fire. And of course, the house wasn't on fire, but I'd be smelling this smoke. And this went on for a while. And then it sort of started to stop. And I don't know why, but from then I started to receive communication with this spirit. Then I started to become a super sensitive child, very sensitive, where growing up on the farm, I was always off exploring and I wanted to just be in nature, wanted to be a bit alone for most of my childhood. I'd still play with friends and things like that. And then I started to notice that I wanted to help kids at primary school. And when I say help kids, it was everything from kid that was upset, I'd come and put my arm around him to make him feel better. If there was a kid being bullied and picked on, I'd go and fight the person to stop him picking on the kid. I started to become super sensitive. And that's when I really started to look out for other people. And then I don't remember receiving many more images or interactions with this spirit. Every now and again it would happen, but it was a little bit different. So as I was getting older, coming into early teenage years, starting to go into high school, I would get the same smell with my eyes open and awake, but I wasn't aware of the meaning of it. I understand now that there were certain things and situations that were happening when I was a teenager that I was sort of either being guided to try and do or maybe change the circumstance of something. And mum being mum, she used to give me readings all the time. So I was pretty lucky really to have such a cool mum to give me a lot of guidance as a young boy and teenager. Well, even up until now. But she said to me that it was a spirit guide that's been gifted to you. You know, it's funny because even after doing shamanism and I'm still doing more study with other teachers and other shamans, a lot of them share actually that if you either get struck by lightning or an accident happens to you early in your childhood years, that's usually a sign that you've been chosen for a higher purpose. So it's your turn then to figure out what your purpose is and how you can bring it into the world to help and heal people. So yeah, went through teenage years and was kind of a quiet kid, I guess. You know, I was always wanting to just be by myself all the time. Still had lots of friends and would go to parties and things like that, but I got most of my fun out of just being by myself, which is funny to think about. And it's still to this day a big part of my life to go camping by myself or go into nature just to be amongst the trees or the ocean. And that's where I find that I recharge my batteries. The teenage years, I left school and I had this mad fix on wanting to join the army, which is crazy, right? I wanted to go to war and fight and, you know, take care of the country and be the hero and all that sort of thing. Probably watching too many action movies as a kid, right? But I went to go and join the army through the whole process, did the medical exam, and they said, you've got a hole in your heart. And I said, what? They said, you've got a hole in your heart. So you've got a giant hole in between the chamber of your heart.
Wow.
After that, of course, they didn't let me in, thank God, because, you know, I think it's funny when you really look at what you think you want to do as a kid. And I think that's the hardest part for all children or young adults, especially when they leave school, knowing what it is that you want to do. You have to find something that you get excited about,
That's right.
finding your passion. And most people don't even know what their passion is. And most people can't sit still with themselves to figure out what they do and what they don't like. So what I would suggest is for anyone that is watching is figure out what it is that makes you feel alive. The things that make you feel happy. the things
Do
that you're
what you
good
love.
at, you love. That's it. And if that's helping people, find something that will fulfill that need inside yourself to help people.
Mm.
Or if it's playing music, find something that you can do or play some music where you can find that passion, and the money will come eventually.
Your life took a real turn, didn't it, at some point? You stopped having that connection with your guide and you walked a different path. What created that journey, the dark night of the soul?
Thank you for bringing that up. I worked with my uncle for a little bit, but I still didn't feel like I was pursuing the thing that I wanted to do. I was making money, had a girlfriend at the time, and looking back on it now, I had this natural ability to give a massage for anyone. If they said they had a sore shoulder or a sore neck, I would already consciously try and channel energy into what was wrong with the person's neck or shoulders. I just thought it was like a normal thing to do. Of course, I'm going to put good energy into someone. So I think that's when it really started for me to help people. So I decided to become a personal trainer because I was loving fitness and that sort of thing. So I did that and then started running boot camps. And I found when I was training clients, it became more of like a psychotherapy session for them, because naturally I would have people come to me and they ended up just sharing more about their life and what their issues were during the session. So it was kind of a bit of learning psychology, learning body language, as well as helping people train, get fit and that sort of thing, as well as provide a safe space as well for people to share. I did that for about 4 years. I started at the age of 18, ran my own business. It's pretty funny, isn't it? And ran boot camps and that sort of thing. And then I ended up moving to Canberra for a little while with one of my ex-girlfriends at the time. And then we broke up and I met my ex-wife at that time. We met in Queensland and then I ended up moving to the Central Coast of New South Wales to be with her. And then she fell pregnant and we had my first child. Yeah. So at that time I was only 22. So all of a sudden go from being a young man who just wants to have a bit of fun and help some people. Now I've got to be a father. It was a huge responsibility and I had to grow up very fast, and I did. And I lost a lot of friends along the way too. And a lot of guys that call me their friends that didn't want to talk to me anymore. The process of growing up wanting to be by myself a lot, I didn't find it difficult because I was already used to being alone anyway, because, I was always quite a strong-willed boy. So then my first daughter was born, and which was beautiful, changed my world completely. Absolutely. I was smitten and found that I really had to grow up super fast. There was a part of me that sort of was lost to some degree that most people grow up with, partying and that sort of thing. I didn't get to experience a lot of that early on. Even with that, I was still helping people, still doing this psychotherapy, counseling / personal training with a lot of people. And then because my wife at the time, she wasn't working, I had to go get a second job to support the family. So I went and got a second job and I ended up working at a health food shop called GNC. And I loved it because I had this natural magnetic pull towards health as well, which was learning about supplementation. So learning about herbs. So then I was introduced to helping people that were coming in with problems, health issues, to heal them naturally through supplementation of herbal supplements. I had women coming in who suffered from menopause, who I would write programs for on things to eat, things to avoid, supplements that can help, and everything. Men that would come in who had depression and just everything that you can think of. And I loved it. And then life took a little bit of a turn. My wife fell pregnant again with our second child, which was incredible. I was over the moon. We were super happy and pregnancy was going along super fine. And then it wasn't until the 23-week mark is the last scan that you get. Yeah, around about that. So we went in for a scan, and I still remember it. This man doing the ultrasound, he was standing there, and he went quiet, super quiet. Took ages. Next minute, another person came into the room, looking, and we said, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Oh, no, it's fine." Cool. And we were sort of, "Okay, that's a bit strange." And then next minute, Emma got a phone call, and it was a specialist. And they said, "Look, we think you need to go and check your ultrasound with a They told us that Paisley, her name was, wasn't growing properly, and her brain was growing quicker than the rest of her body, and she had heart problems as well. And they said, look, if you go full term with the child, there's 90 to 95% chance that she's not going to live. So you can go full term if you want to, or you can elect now to be induced and have her early, which she'll be stillborn. So we were devastated, absolutely devastated. And that was the second time that I would say I had suffered really big heartbreak, and we were super devastated. And when we booked in to go to the hospital so that she could be born, tell you what, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, and no doubt Emma's life. And being a young man, how old was I then? 26, 27 years old, to go through
Young.
that sort of experience at such a young age. And yeah, we waited in the hospital, and she was only about this big, tiny, tiny little baby. And I felt angry. I felt angry at the world. Like, why us? Why is this happening to us? Absolutely heartbroken. And from that time, that's when I sort of went into my first taste of depression and dealing with it in my own way. I still had to go to work because I still had to support the family. So I sort of just had to toughen up. And it was a bit of a dark night of the soul, but I still wanted to help people. That was the thing, you know? But with wanting to help other people, I didn't end up helping myself. And I guess from there, it really escalated after that. I had another daughter that was born after Paisley. And then wasn't long after that, we went through a divorce, and I had to then become a single father and learn how to be a dad. Then I started to work in Western Australia in the mines, doing 4 weeks away, trying to make money to get myself ahead. And I was a dad the whole time. And that whole experience, I still remember the smell of smoke coming at particular times.
You came
And
back.
actually, now that I think about it, at the funeral of Paisley, I remember a white rabbit showed up out of nowhere and just started bouncing around. And I think from that point, when I looked at this rabbit, all of a sudden it all came back from spirit. It was like, why am I looking at this rabbit? Most people would probably just sort of look at it and go, oh, there's a white rabbit. But I really felt a strong spiritual connection with animals as well. So for a white rabbit to show up at that time was pretty special. Fast forward to where I had left off just before, through that whole process of being a single dad, working away, I was battling severe depression, still being a father, but still getting a lot of guidance from my guide as well, because he would show up really when it was in times of severe depression. And when I needed showing up, he would provide me situations or people that I would bump into that would lift up my spirits, get myself out of the depressive state that was almost too much synchronicity, so to speak, because it was funny how it worked. That's when my intuition really started to come back. And I found all of a sudden that I started to see spirits. I was about 29 at that time. And that's when I sort of performed my first reading, I guess, without having any training. Mum never really taught me how to do it, but I was always interested in it. You know, spirituality was still a part of my life, but I'd sort of pushed it away a lot. And it was only at that stage that the girl that I was seeing, she'd lost her grandfather. And I went into my first reading and connected with her grandfather without even having any type of experience. And I saw this big, long pier, this man with a hat fishing. So it sort of just happened. And everything that I was communicating through, she was just in shock because it was all bang on. Like, he wore a hat. He loved fishing. He would always go to this pier, like all these things. And I came back with these messages for her. And then I came back out of it going, I don't know what happened. It was like I was in a dream state. I was a bit scared of it, to be honest, which is funny because I love that now. I love to channel spirits now, and I do every day. But yeah, at that time I pushed it away, and then some more unfortunate things happened. And then that's when I started to fall into drug addiction too, because I hadn't dealt with all that pain from my childhood, from Paisley, plus divorce and all that sort of thing. So then I started to figure out that I was going into drugs to numb my pain. And I was trying to escape from reality and trying to escape from the pain that I was feeling that I didn't know how to express because I'd never felt safe to express it as well, because I'd had a child so early on. It was kind of like I had to grow up super fast and be the man, the guy that's strong for the family and all that sort of typical masculine archetype. So,
What brought
yeah,
you
I
out of
guess,
that, Zane? And you talk about that there was the suicidal thoughts, the drug
yeah,
addiction, depression,
yeah,
anxiety. You watched your
mhm,
father die of cancer, weakness in Paisley, etc.
yeah.
What brought you out of that and to take you on the path you're on now?
I wouldn't say that there was one thing in particular that got me out of it. I think it was an accumulation of lots of things. The one thing that really stands out is when my father died of cancer. I remember him sitting in the bed at the hospital and he was down to like 35 kilos or something crazy like that, skin and bones pretty much. I, I flew down to spend time with him. And anyway, he shared something with me that will still stay with me to this day. And he said to me, son, if there's anything in life that makes you unhappy, change it. He said, look at me. He said, I've worked my whole life, the farm and everything like that. Haven't really been overseas, haven't been anywhere, never traveled into or any of that. Don't get to my age being unhappy. And it stuck with me, and it wasn't long after that when he passed away. And then I started to get those spiritual experiences again from him coming into my room. And yeah, it was a lot of crazy, crazy things. A glass would fall off the table. It wasn't on the edge of the table, it was in the middle of the table and would just roll off all of a sudden. So things that happen after his passing that I haven't really spoken about, to be honest. That's when, looking back on it now, that's when my path was really sort of starting to open up into this direction that I'm now on. So that little message that my dad gave me was sort of the first catalyst to getting myself out of a depressive state, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and things like that. Let's fast forward a bit. COVID hit, and I was going through a very difficult time with my ex partner at the time. I was getting a lot of abuse, not just physical abuse. Usually it's the other way around. Usually it's the woman getting the physical abuse, as well as the best thing that you can do is go kill yourself. And every day I was getting told this sort of thing, and it was making it worse and worse. My depression and anxiety, till finally my soul, my spirit, my guides just went, enough's enough. You've got to go. So I decided to leave. And that was when I was introduced to my first psychedelic experience. And the first experience really for me was one of the most life-changing experiences I think I've ever had, because during that experience, it showed me patterns and behaviors inside myself and things that I had allowed to happen. And that first experience, I remember I looked in the mirror and I just stared at my face. And all of a sudden, I just saw my face change from the face that you see. And I could just see myself instantly growing old. And it was showing me that life is so short. And it was saying to me, if you want to be happy, you have to make the choice to change your life. And so I did. And from that moment, I started to change my life dramatically. And that's when I really dived into Eckhart Tolle. And then I found that my brother was also guiding me to podcasts and things like that, and as well as a few other people. And it was funny how all these things were starting to come into my awareness
You were
just all of a
ready.
sudden.
You were
Yeah,
ready. Yeah.
I was ready.
Right.
And when I say when I dived in, I mean study every day. I was sick of being the person that I was. And I was like, this is now the start of the man that I'm going to become. And through that whole process, it took me 4 years of full on study nearly every single day,
And
every day.
today, you have your own healing practice.
I had my own healing practice, which led me to helping people and giving them a chance to heal their wounds. And I think that people are drawn to me because of the experiences that I've had. And I guess I've kind of lived them, and I understand where people are coming from with their pain. You know, I've suffered my type of pain, and I can sympathize and understand, and I can see the energies and where they're stored in people, in their physical body, in their spiritual body. I'll have spirits communicating through me, telling me about them. And I just provide the information for the person as well without doing the actual healing to begin with. So it's an amazing path, and I can't see myself doing anything else, to be honest, because I love it.
I think you're home with where you are, saying I think it has been an incredible journey for you. If you could give one piece of advice to a young person who is having or has had similar childhood experiences as you, what would you say to that child who might be going, oh my God, this is happening and I'm really freaking out?
I would say, don't be scared.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Open your heart, communicate, and find someone that you can talk to about these experiences. And for a lot of kids, they don't have a parent that they can safely talk to. And it doesn't matter what age they are. It could be a young child, or it could be a teenager, or any age. But reach out and find someone that you can talk to, because sharing your experiences with someone who understands, they can help guide you to unlock these gifts. And that's what they are. They are gifts that you have brought into this world. And it's now your turn to let that gift flourish and embrace it and see where it takes you.
Beautifully said. And what about some advice to parents who may have children experiencing what you went through? You were lucky because of your mum's understanding. And obviously, your dad was very accepting of it as well. You know, a lot of parents don't understand or don't know what to do about it. Or what would you say to them?
I would say to them, if you're not into spirituality, but you have a child that has a gift, whether it's communicating with spirits or whatever gift it is, I would say reach out to someone that can help your child to develop this gift. Don't push it away, because if you push it away, the child will then start to push it away. And by pushing away the gift, takes your soul further away from its purpose. And what will happen is that the further that we step away from our purpose, the quicker accidents and misfortunes will happen in our life for us to stop in order to then go towards that path that we were always destined to go to. So I would say reach out to someone that you can communicate with about the experiences and encourage your child and talk to them too. Be curious, ask them about it, talk to them about it, encourage it. I think too many people these days are too scared, especially with spirituality. I mean, spirituality is making a huge comeback with consciousness the whole world is going through at the moment. And I think people, when you're scared of something, it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? But the thing is, you have to realize if your child has a gift or if you have a gift, you have to embrace that gift,
Mm.
learn about the gift, and start to practice with that gift. Because the more that you start to practice it, the more it unlocks. And the more that you will start to find that passion in your heart.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Incredible story. And it's inspiring to know that these abilities and gifts can be rediscovered and reintegrated into our lives at any stage. And to anyone listening, if this resonated with you, if you have a story you would like to share, please reach out. And until next time, remember, the magic and innocence within never truly fades. It's always there.